Camera. Bad. Camera schmutzy. Hold on. Let's. Camera better. There we go. I'm thinking, like, what the hell happened to my camera? All right. Welcome, guys. That was wild and messy. Welcome, everybody. Let me get my light adjusted. I don't know that we need a little bit of light. That's good enough. The light's good enough. Welcome all. Let me get TikTok rolling. TikTok actually is ready to roll. Go live. Okay, TikTok's ready. Anyway, welcome everybody. I do need to get this sweater cleaned. All right. Boom. TikTok is ready. We are ready, Freddie. All right, welcome everybody. Actually, I could use a little more light on overhead. One second. I'll put the light on overhead a little stronger so I can read my notes better. One moment. There. Now I can do this dramatically, like I'm walking into the scene there, like Mr. Rogers arriving at his desk. Well, he doesn't have a desk, I guess. He never did have a desk. Anyway, welcome everybody there. I can read my notes a little bit better now. Hey, Geeky Panda. Hey, In Vogue, everybody. You're scared for this country? I am too. Hey, Christina. Welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. Thank you, John S. This is my show. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine, the latest Trump news as well. Thank you, cool. We also talk about when the news coincides, which it does a lot. But today we're going to talk about Ukraine, especially. It's the 1,000th day of the war, although not quite necessarily the 1,000th day of the war, really. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, user 336. It's thank you, Ronnie. That was very funny. I do have legs, Jeff. Yes. It's the 1,000th day. Thank you, Ava and Russell. Since Russia reinvaded on February 24th of 2022. The Ukrainians will tell you it's not the 1,000th day. It's actually been 10 years that Russia actually invaded Ukraine back in 2014. And that this has been an ongoing war for 10 years. But the rest of us only became sort of, not aware of it, but paying attention when Russia invaded again in 2022 with even more troops. Thank you, Running, for the gifts there. Thank you, Iggy. So nonetheless, it's been 1,000 days since the Russians invaded for the second time. We're going to talk a lot about our favorite topic, nuclear war, nuclear war. Oh my God. Terrifying. Putin is so scary. We should just give up because he's such a scary guy. I think I need a screaming dribble for that. There we go. Yes, I am not afraid of Vladimir Putin. I am not even vaguely afraid of Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is a bit of a con artist, actually. Thank you, Bjorn, for the gift. Putin wants to scare us. Anybody who's been watching my show knows for the last 3 years, Putin has been effectively scaring us. Not scaring me. Doesn't scare me at all. Thank you, Daniel. But he scared President Biden. He scared President of France. He scared the Chancellor of Germany, head of Germany. Convinced them all that, oh my God, he's crazy. He'll go to war. We've got to be nice to him. And every step of the way, we pulled our punches and we hurt Ukraine. In the last couple days, we changed our mind. Thank you, Jazek, which is great. He's absolutely bluffing. We're going to talk about it in a second, Siamese, but Putin's absolutely bluffing. Thank you, lefties, for the gift. In the last couple days, the U.S. finally came around, as Biden does. Biden is the king of fear. Oh my God, no. And then 6 months later, maybe. And then 9 months later, okay. And then Biden always gives the okay to do something, militarily, internationally, once it's too late. But he'll always say no at first. Thank you, Diana. My main mug is unplugged from TikTok. Hang on. You are correct. There we go. All right, Joshua, how's that? You're right. I did not have the mug plugged in on TikTok. All right, that should be better on TikTok. So yeah, thank you, Jorge. So Biden, thank you, Colin, for the gifts. So honestly, I am becoming more and more convinced that, thank you, Colin, that, and thank you, Richard, Biden deserves a lot of our scorn, actually. I think he's going to go down in history as kind of a disaster on foreign policy. And it's ironic because there is a side to Biden that's very good on foreign policy, right? Thank you, Evra. Thank you, Mikey. I mean, Biden pulled the international coalition together on Ukraine, and he really did. But again, if if you've got a really good doctor, thank you, Anne, and you go for surgery, and the doctor's really good, and he calls the best team together, right? And the first half of the surgery, he, almost kills you. And the second half of the surgery, though, he gets really good. Problem is, you're still going to die. But the second half was really good of the surgery, but the first half, he almost killed you and you're going to die. That's what Biden did. Biden got a good team together and then screwed Ukraine because he was afraid of Putin. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Jen and Marg and Randy and Jen, all the gifts there. Biden was afraid of Putin, and not just Biden. The Germans and the French equally afraid of Putin. They refused to stand up to Putin and help Ukraine at the beginning. What they basically did, I always compare this to, I sort of try to find examples to compare it to in real life, and it's kind of hard. I was comparing it to, again, medicine is kind of one of the obvious ones, right? But I think let's just today stick with, so we're the 1,000 day anniversary of the war. Let's stick with just the actual, let's not even do metaphors, okay? Russia invades Ukraine. Russia is a huge country. Russia is a dangerous country. Russia's a backwards country, right? Russia's no longer a superpower anymore. I mean, they've got nuclear weapons, so they're a superpower in that sense. Thank you, Fred. But they're not a superpower in the economic sense or even the military sense, other than nukes, really, I would argue. Nonetheless, Russia can cause a lot of damage, especially to smaller countries like Ukraine. Russia invades. Russia's intent is to wipe Ukraine off the map, right? The Russians do not think Ukraine exists as an independent country. Thank you, Jetta. And the Russians have said this repeatedly. Thank you. Oh, hey, man. I was going to thank you, Manda, for subscribing. The Russians do not think Ukraine is a real country. They don't think the Ukrainians are an actual ethnicity. They think they're Russians. So that's a big part of the reason they invaded. They think, oh, they're Russians. We're just going to bring them back into the fold of Russia. There was some Russian at the beginning of the war who actually said, the Ukrainians are Russians. They just don't realize it. And we're going to educate them and help them learn that they're actually Russians. I mean, imagine that kind of condescending thing to tell somebody, right? So anyway, Russia comes in, wants to wipe Ukraine off the map. The U.S. comes in, thank you, Larissa, with, again, big international coalition. And the U.S. comes in, and Biden does get the international coalition together, which is not easy to do. Thank you, Chezek. Not easy to do at all. And he gets them to start giving lots of aid to Ukraine. The problem is, Biden, the Germans, and the French never wanted to give Ukraine enough weapons to actually win the war. We knew this from the beginning, and they finally admitted it after a while. Thank you, Just Me. But Biden, from the beginning, and the French and the Germans were afraid Putin might use his nuclear weapons. So they wanted to help Ukraine, but they were afraid of helping Ukraine. And this cognitive disconnect in their brain, right? Oh my God, I want to help Ukraine. Oh my God, if I help Ukraine, Putin will use nukes, so I shouldn't help Ukraine. But if I don't help Ukraine, Putin will take all of Ukraine, and then he'll invade Europe, and then we'll have war anyway. So Biden kept playing this weird game of, if I help Ukraine, we may go to war with Russia. If I don't help Ukraine, we may go to war with Russia. So Biden decided to help Ukraine halfway. And at the beginning, we refused to give Ukraine most of the weapons it needed. Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles are not offensive weapons. Patriot missiles are weapons that are used for defending yourselves, right? They take down, mostly in Ukraine especially, Patriot missiles are used to take down incoming rockets, right? Maybe incoming drones too. But incoming weapons that are flying in to bomb civilians, the Patriot missiles take out of the sky. Totally benign weapon system, right? We're not using it to kill Russians at all, right? The system is just used to take down weapons that are flying into Ukraine to kill people. Again, so from a Russian perspective, it's benign, right? It's not even being used against Russian soldiers. Biden refused for a year, almost a year. Biden refused to give Ukraine Patriot missiles. Thank you, B. Smith, because Putin would get angry. So for almost a year, Ukrainian civilians died. And the U.S. did nothing because we were afraid Putin would get angry. Then, 9 months later, we started giving Ukraine Patriot missiles. We gave them like 1 or 2 missile batteries. So it's an actual missile system. We gave them 1 or 2. Ooh, how generous of the strongest military on earth to give Ukraine 1 or 2 Patriot missile systems. That's so sweet. We also didn't want to give them HIMARS, which is a really nice rocket system. We refused for months and months and months to give Ukraine the HIMARS systems. We refused, I've got a list here. We refused to give them M77, or do you say M777, or I forget, I don't know how you say it militarily, but it's an M777 howitzers. We refused to give them Abrams tanks. We refused to give them F-16s. On and cluster bombs. On and on and on. We refused. Each M777, thank you, Michael. I know I was going to say I know there's a way you guys would say it that I'm saying wrong. M777 howitzers. Every step of the way. And Zelensky, by the way, don't listen to me. Zelensky called Biden out on this months ago. He said, can we stop playing the game where every time we need something, you say no, and then 6 months later, you change your mind? Can we just skip the 6 months? Thank you, Martin. Can we just skip the 6 months and just give us the weapons rather than telling us no? So what happens? And this is why it made such a huge difference. At the beginning of the war, actually, let me get my map and show you this, all right? Because this was a big deal. We are talking about how Biden and NATO screwed over the Ukrainians and lost the war. And again, it's Biden's fault. It's the French and the Germans' fault especially, okay? So beginning of the war, the Russians come in, got my little pointer from my dad. The Russians come in and they take over big chunks of Ukraine, right? They came down here, a lot of stuff up here. They miss Kharkiv, but they come through a lot of this. And the Ukrainians basically push the Russians out. So the Russians now control this, all of this here, right? Like this swath here, but all of this, the Russians were kicked out, which is great. When Ukraine was kicking the Russians out, they could have continued. They could have continued to kick the Russians' ass. They couldn't. They didn't have enough weapons. We didn't give them enough weapons, right? So Ukraine had to do a pause. In that pause, the Russians were able to fight back, but also the Russians were able to dig in. Ukraine was getting ready for a big counteroffensive. A big counteroffensive. Remember the one we talked about last year that was huge? It was supposed to be huge. And they were going to push the Russians the next stage. So the first stage was kicking the Russians out of here. The next stage was kicking the Russians out of here. Ukraine's preparing for its counteroffensive. A lot of weapons we still hadn't given them. We still haven't given them tanks at this point. We still hadn't given them aircraft, none of this stuff. We finally, and mind you, took us, over a year to even agree to the tanks. And the U.S. wasn't even going to give tanks. The Germans had to shame us into giving tanks. We finally agreed to the tanks. And then it's going to take 6 months to get to the tanks because the training and this and this and this. The Ukrainian counteroffensive to push the Russians out of the rest of Ukraine got delayed for months because NATO dragged its fat ass and didn't get weapons to the Ukrainians in time. So the Ukrainians had to wait. The longer the Ukrainians waited, what did the Russians do? The Russians didn't just sit there. The Russians said, yay, NATO's dragging its fat ass because Biden, the French, and the Germans are afraid of giving Ukraine what it needs. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jean-Marie. And the Russians to say, okay, well, if the Ukrainians are now going to wait 3 or 4 months before they attack, we're going to dig in. We're just going to build the best defenses ever. Thank you, Martin. We're going to literally dug in. They built trenches. They built these dragon's teeth, these like huge cement blocks sticking out of the ground. The Russians did an amazing defense. So by the US and Europe delaying weapons like planes and tanks especially to the Ukrainians. Thank you, Martin. We gave the Russians time to dig in, and they dug in so well that it was next to impossible for the Ukrainians to kick them out, because had we given the weapons earlier, the Russians wouldn't have had time to dig in, and the Ukrainians could have wiped them out. Second big problem here. Even if we got the Ukrainians the tanks earlier, they still would have lost. Why? And again, the military folks, I always say I'm a foreign policy guy. I'm not a military guy, but I'm not stupid. I do my reading. Thank you, Elizabeth. The Ukrainians did not have the air power they needed for the counteroffensive. Military folks will tell you, and again, the military minds know this better than I do, but I could think of non-military areas this applies to, even in politics. In politics, you don't just do one thing. You do lots of different things, right? You're trying to achieve something. You use the grassroots. You use the media, right? I mean, you maybe use campaign contributions. You do lots of, you could even go and lobby. You do lots of different strategies and tactics, right? Same thing with the military. For Ukraine to be able to win the counteroffensive last year, that was so important to them. They needed air power. They didn't have air power. We refused to give them the air power. That's one big reason why the counteroffensive didn't work. And I will tell you this, the military experts will tell you, not even will tell you, go back and look. At the time, the military experts said, we are asking Ukraine to pull something off, this counteroffensive, that we would never do because we would need air power to pull it off. And we're asking them to pull it off without air power. And what happened? Ukraine lost the counteroffensive. And we knew they would lose the counteroffensive because you can't win it without air power. We refused them the air power. Now, this is important. And I'm sorry, because a lot of the, sort of pro, or not even pro-Democrat, thank you, Christina, people on the left, they want to be sort of knee-jerk. Thank you, Skywalker. Thank you, Christina. They want to be sort of knee-jerk in defense of Biden. And one thing that I've always done in my life is I will support politicians and political parties that I believe in, but I will not let them do stupid things with impunity, right? I will not let Biden lose Ukraine when he could have won it. I will not at least let him get away with it. And he screwed it up. And again, it wasn't just Biden, it was the French and the Germans too. The three of them were terrified of Vladimir Putin, terrified of his nuclear weapons, and they pulled punches, and that's why Ukraine is not going to win this war. It's terrible. Thank you, Ellie. But I think it's really important on the thousandth day to think about this. Now, fast forward to today. We once again have Vladimir Putin threatening nuclear war. Well, of course he is. It works, right? It works. We've witnessed for the last 1,000 days that every time Putin threatens nuclear war, Biden, the French, and the Germans freak out. So why wouldn't he, right? It made NATO not give Ukraine what it needed. It made NATO pull punches. It made NATO, the Russians were playing the refs, playing the referees, right? And it works. So of course the Russians are threatening nuclear war again. Thank you, Joe, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's all a big bluff from Russia. I mean, a number of people online were even saying, where's the nuclear war, right? Putin said he would go nuclear if we, or not Putin, Putin's people, right? Oh, nuclear war if NATO lets Ukraine use ATACMS missiles to fire inside Russia. Last night, the Ukrainians did. Where's the nuclear war? I didn't see any today. Gee, the Russians were bluffing again. Do you know how many times the Russians have promised nuclear war in the last 3 years? Literally. Almost every major weapon system, the Russians promised nuclear war, right? F-16s, nuclear war. Tanks, nuclear war. The Russians even, and this was my favorite, the Russians even claimed that if Ukraine tried to get back its own land, right? Remember, the Russians are still holding 18% of Ukraine. All of this, the Russians are still holding, okay? All of this area. The Russians claimed, well, now that we hold this land of Ukraine, the yellow is Ukraine, right? We're just going to claim that it's Russia, right? Russia controls it and says, okay, it's Russia now. And this was like one of my favorite Russia moments. Putin goes, well, I have decided magically that this part of Ukraine is now Russia. So if the Ukrainians try to even fight us inside this part of Ukraine, they're actually invading Russia. And if they invade Russia, we'll use nuclear weapons. I mean, again, like the logic of it, right? If the Ukrainians invade their own territory to try to take it back, the Russians will consider it an invasion of Russia and will use nukes. Well, I've got news for you. For the last 2.5 years, the Ukrainians have been invading Ukrainian territory and Russia has not used its nukes. Then Russia said, aha, but if you invade actual Russia, not just fake Russia, right? Like this part, then we'll go nuclear. So what did the Ukrainians do a couple months ago? They invaded actual Russia and they are holding a chunk of land in a province called Kursk up here in Russia. Ukrainians are holding it. And guess what? No nuclear war. The Russians lied about that. So now the Russians are saying that, oh, well, if this was great last night. if America and the Europeans decide to let Ukraine use these weapons to fire inside Russia, we are going to change our nuclear doctrine. They actually did this. They changed their nuclear doctrine, which, by the way, means absolutely nothing. Thank you, my lady. Oh, my lady. I was saying my lady. Thank you, Dawn, for the gifts. Russia changes its nuclear policy. So now, if a foreign country attacks Russia using weapons provided to it by a nuclear power, then Russia reserves the right to use nukes in response. Yeah. So what? Thank you, Teresa. And I thank you, Dave. And I say so what, or Didi? Because, I mean, guys, this is Russia. Does anybody think Vladimir Putin can't use nuclear weapons whenever he wants? He's a dictator. He can use nuclear weapons whenever he wants. I mean, does anybody really? I mean, the Russians are literally saying today, thank you, Nasha, Vladimir Putin had no power in Russia. He really had no power. And he certainly had no power over nuclear weapons. He wanted to use nuclear weapons so much, but we wouldn't let him. Whoever in Russia, like there's a we that's stopping Vladimir Putin, right? Thank you, Nasha. Thank you, Girly. But now that America is letting Ukraine use ATACMS weapons to fire into Russia, we're going to let Vladimir Putin use those nuclear weapons. Vladimir Putin could always use those nuclear weapons. He's always had the ability to if he wanted to. So A, the policy changes nothing. That's the first thing. B, if Putin wasn't willing to use nuclear weapons for the last 3 years, why would he use them today? Right? Thank you, Margaret. Like every other threat Putin has made to use nukes has been a lie. We now know because he hasn't used nukes. Why would he use them now? I would argue he won't use them because there's a reason Putin has not used nuclear weapons. Okay? A, we have nuclear weapons. If he uses nuclear weapons, we use ours. And then everybody dies. That is a bad thing. Even Putin thinks that's a bad thing. Putin would like you to think he's crazy. He's not crazy. He's actually very smart. He's a very intelligent man, very strategic thinker. He knows that if Russia uses its nuclear weapons, America will use its nuclear weapons and everybody will die. Why would you do that then? Right? I mean, right? I mean, again, I'm trying to sort of find an analogy. I'm not even sure what the analogy is here. Okay, here's an analogy. I guess like somebody takes your family hostage and there's a couple different options. And the police say, well, we have one option to try to go save your family from the killers or whatever. But this option, if we do it, the killers will kill your family. Are you going to say, I think I'd like to do the option that gets my family killed. Let's do that option for saving my family, right? No, right? I mean, literally, no. You're not going to say, well, I know this option will get my family killed. Let's do this one to save my family. It's the same thing with nuclear weapons. Putin knows if he uses nuclear weapons, we'll use ours and everybody will die. Why would Putin want his own people to die? Why would he want himself and his daughters to die? Why? He wouldn't. It's all a bluff. In nuclear terms, it's called mutually assured destruction. It's a policy that has existed, or a theory maybe, I guess you'd call it this, existed for 70 years of nuclear weapons existing. And it's the idea that we are mutually assured of destroying each other. Therefore, neither side will use the nukes because unless it's a last resort, thank you, Rachel, unless it's a last resort, why would you do it? Right? There's no reason. And Putin is absolutely 100% rational. There's no evidence that he's not. That's the thing. I would argue it's actually kind of not racist. I'm not sure what word to use. Do we really think the Russians are somehow different than other human beings? Really? You don't think the Russians are just as rational as the rest of us? Maybe, right? I think on every country on earth, every color, every race, people are just as rational, black, white, brown, whatever, right? People are people. They're either rational or they're not. But you get to be Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has given no evidence to suggest that he's not rational. I don't buy it. So I listen to Putin now today go, oh, now we'll consider using nuclear weapons. Oh, by the way, the final point Putin won't use nuclear weapons that everybody talks about is China. China does really not want Putin to use nuclear weapons. Putin needs China left and right. I mean, the only reason North Korea is helping Russia is because China gave them permission to. So China would flip out if Putin used nuclear weapons. That's the other reason he's not going to do it. They're just bullshitting us like they always do. Jake asks a generous super chat question. Thousandth way a day Russia has been more specific as to using nuclear weapons metaphor. Okay, Jake, that felt like a haiku. Thousandth day, Russia has been more specific as to using nuclear weapons metaphor. Jake, I don't know what the hell that means. Give me more. You don't have to pay for it, but tell me more what you mean by that. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Anyway, so yeah, I just kind of, thank you, Paul. It bums me out because we screwed Ukraine over. We totally screwed Ukraine over. And we did it because we were afraid of Putin. And with Trump coming in, it's going to be even worse. His people, oh my God, Trump's people were just all the Trumpers today, nonstop with oh my God, World War III, oh my God. It's like, guys, would you grow a pair? Again, if I'm China, I'm watching this and going, this is great. These Trump people, they're terrified of fighting. They're terrified of standing up to anybody, let alone a nuclear power, right? If I were China, I'd be looking at them and going, this is great. Where you follow the Russian example of scaring. Look how scared Biden was. Trump is 1,000 times more scared of Russia than Biden is, right? If I was China, I'd be going, this is great. B. Smith, will Trump's way of ending the war actually work? We don't know what Trump's way of ending the war is. Trump is a liar. So it's hard to know, right? Will he even try to end the war? He's a liar. What we know is Trump claims he's going to tell Putin and tell Zelensky that both of them had better stop fighting or else. And if they don't stop fighting and negotiate, he'll do one of two things. If Putin refuses to negotiate, Trump says he will, thank you, KT, he will give even more weapons to Ukraine. But if Zelensky refuses to negotiate, Putin says he'll cut all the weapons off of Ukraine. It's like, okay, the problem is Trump has no plan. Remember Trump said he had a plan to get rid of ISIS in one day? Trump, like always, he makes everything up. He just makes everything up. So Trump has no plan. I think the biggest problem with anything that Trump or anybody else is suggesting is they're under this theory, this notion that if the fighting simply stops magically, it won't start again, right? That the solution to the war is just, it's sort of an incredibly naive, right, notion. If you just stop fighting, there will be no more fighting. Well, maybe, except that Russia isn't fighting in Ukraine just because they're fighting, right? Russia's fighting in Ukraine because they want to take all of Ukraine and make it Russia. Russia feels the same way about many other surrounding countries. They want to invade their neighbors and take them back, make them part of the Soviet Union again, in essence, or countries that were part of the Soviet Union and part of the Soviet bloc, they want to control them again. That doesn't change if the fighting stops. Putin will just invade again in 3 to 5 years because he wants to take all of Ukraine. This is why they're kidnapping Ukrainian children, right? Putin was indicted by the International Criminal Court for kidnapping Ukrainian children. That's literally why he was indicted by the ICC, by The Hague. They're doing that because they want to make Ukraine Russian. They're not going to stop fighting. They may stop fighting for 3 years, build up again, and then they're going to invade again. So that's the biggest problem. Thank you, Maddie. That's the biggest sort of concern about why Trump's peace plan won't work, because Trump's peace plan kind of just says stop fighting. Now I will say this: Trump, we hear on the edges that Trump's peace plan involves giving Ukraine weapons. You'd have to give Ukraine a buttload of weapons in order to make it so the Russians wouldn't invade again. There's also this talk of getting a European peace force. Let's see. I'm not convinced. The biggest problem with Trump's peace plan is, of course, he wants to give 20% of Ukraine to the Russians, which is the biggest problem. So anyway, so that was I'm trying to go through, I wasn't going through my notes, but that still was a bunch of stuff from the notes. Thank you, Maku. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. As you know, by the way, I will show you at the end of the show, but we have a ton of really cool new auction items from Ukraine. I mean, ridiculously cool stuff. Vlad, I finally got my package from Vlad in Ukraine. 2 of them. The third one's coming. We've got a Russian drone that we're auctioning off to benefit Ukraine. I've got a ton of cool stuff. Some Ukrainian art, some cool T-shirts. I've even got a new the White House 2024 Christmas ornament. That's very cool that I've got. Actually, this one's very cool because it's dedicated to Jimmy Carter, President Carter, and it's got a really cool book that comes with it, all about President and Mrs. Carter and stuff. Anyway, really cool stuff. But ton of I'll show you some more at the end of the show. But I've got, like I said, a ton of. I mean, the Russian drone's the coolest thing ever. It's literally a Russian drone. Coolest freaking thing ever. Anyway. But we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Thank you, Addie New. And yeah, the Russian, the ornament's pretty cool too. The White House Christmas ornament is really neat. Lot of cool stuff. Anyway. All right, guys. What else we got? Oh, yeah, let me go through. I still got a lot of news here. China. So thank you, Ian. So China, and you can go check out our auctions on our Discord. The mods can tell you how to find Discord on TikTok or YouTube. China. So remember we talked about a couple days ago that it looked like the Russians had cut some communications cables, some internet cables, connecting a number of European countries and sort of more Eastern Scandinavian countries, Germany, Finland, etc., Sweden. Well, it looks today like a Chinese vessel may have been responsible for cutting the cable. A Chinese vessel, by one account, that had a Russian captain. Now, I believe a Chinese vessel had also cut some of the European communications cables and, claimed, oh, it was a totally mistake, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it was a mistake. Sure it was. Anyway, Britain, Germany, Canada, and Luxembourg announced additional $30 million for drone coalition financing. A little bit more on Trump now. So Trump tapped another TV doctor, another TV guy. Big surprise. Trump watches TV and he just picks people to do jobs. He picked another TV doctor, this time Dr. Oz, he's called, to head up Medicare and Medicaid, which are our programs for healthcare programs for poor people and for seniors. Oz, among his other famous things Dr. Oz did, he went on Fox News in 2020 and on 40 different times pushed the purported benefits of a COVID hoax medication called hydroxychloroquine. Claimed it fought COVID. It doesn't. It's one of the COVID hoaxes that the bad guys, the anti-vaxxers, were putting out. 40 different times he promoted it. This guy, Trump picked him because why? This guy appears on Fox News all the time. Of course, this is how Trump picks people. Remember, Trump picked his Secretary of Defense because his Secretary of Defense is on Fox News. This is who Trump is. This is who he is. Walmart. So this is kind of bad news. This is actually very interesting news. I've been talking for a while about how Trump's tariffs are going to cause inflation. A lot of economists are worried about this. The Wall Street Journal is worried about this. Thank you, Fanutis, for the gift. The Walmart, which is one of the largest American companies, not sure how to describe Walmart. I guess a big box store, we call them. I'm not sure how to describe Walmart to people abroad. It's kind of a big supermarket department store. They have food. They have, clothing. They have computers. It's sort of like a little bit of everything, right? Largest retailer in the world. Oh, they are in the world. They are entrepreneur. I didn't realize that. Walmart's the largest in the world. Thank you, Maku, for the gift. Walmart came out today. Hypermarket. Yeah, Hypermarché in France. Like a big Aldi, like a super Aldi though. Walmart came out today and said it may have to raise prices on its goods if Trump goes ahead with his policies. Oops. Now, this is something Democrats had been saying for a year. They've been saying that Trump's policies were going to cause massive inflation. Everybody voted for Trump anyway. The Economist had told everybody that Trump's policies will cause massive inflation. Now you've got one of America's major corporations going public and saying they're going to have to raise prices if Trump's tariff policies go through. Why? Trump is talking about raising the price of every product imported into America by 10 to 20%. Who do you think is going to pay for that if the product becomes more expensive? You and me. He wants to raise, he's already said this, every single product imported into the US, and we import a ton of products, every single product will go up 10 to 20%, Trump says. And Google this, by the way. I mean, it's literally, the tariffs were one of Trump's main campaign promises. All products increase 10 to 20%, Trump said, and he will put tariffs on goods from China. What was the number exactly? Thank you for the gift there, Mrs. Toad. Hey, you got to get back to me, Mrs. Toad, about the auction item. You got to get back to me on Discord. You didn't write me back privately. I sent you a message privately about it. So make sure you get back to me. He promised to raise prices on goods from China 60% to 100%. Now, the problem with the China stuff is we get a ton of stuff. We get a ton of stuff from China, a ton of it. This is something you all should Google. I would suggest, for example, reading the conservative Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal is our financial paper. They're very conservative. They have been very critical of Trump's tariffs, saying it's going to cause massive inflation. So Google them, because the right-wingers think we're lying. Google them. By the way, Google Walmart today, and you will see Walmart themselves came out and said that they are afraid they're going to have to raise prices because of Trump and what he's going to do with tariffs. Lowe's also came and made the similar concerns today as well. Lowe's is another big company. They expressed similar concerns. So all I can say is get ready for it, America. You know, this is what you voted for. You were warned. Oh, well. Oh, well. RFK Jr. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's the guy that conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxer, who Trump picked to be in charge of healthcare in America, top health official in the government. And he, among other things, is an anti-vaxxer. He once famously said, just a year and a half ago, he famously said that he lied and claimed that there are no vaccines proven safe and effective. Google it. It's a lie, of course. He's lying. Vaccines are safe and effective. But Google it, because you will see he said this a year and a half ago. He is against the polio vaccine. He claims the polio vaccine doesn't work. I mean, he's crazy. He's an anti-vaxxer. He's a conspiracy theorist. Well, some folks went and found some old video of him during COVID talking about how maybe the U.S., again, this is a lie, but Kennedy claimed that maybe the U.S. government was behind the COVID outbreak, not China, which was the big thing the Republicans tried to push, maybe the U.S. government. He said, many people argue that this pandemic was a plandemic. By the way, many people do not argue that. That is a hoax. That is a conspiracy theory. Many people do not argue that COVID was planned, right? But listen to this. Many people argue that this pandemic was a plandemic, that it was planned from the outset. It's a part of a sinister scheme, Kennedy says. I can tell you the answer to that, Kennedy says. I can't. Listen to this. I can't tell you the answer to that, he says. I don't have enough evidence. He goes, but a lot of it feels very planned to me. And he goes, and I'm not even going to read the rest of it because TikTok gets freaked out whenever I read stuff like that. They get confused. The TikTok moderators get confused. He goes and he says that basically our government planned the COVID outbreak because they wanted to clamp down and install a totalitarian dictatorship, Kennedy claimed, ridiculously. I mean, this is the guy that Donald Trump picked to be his top health official. It's like, okay. Finally, we've got Donald Trump doing something creative. What a surprise. So Donald Trump is threatening American national security. What a surprise. What a surprise. We find out today, this comes via The Economist's defense correspondent. I wrote for The Economist once, by the way. This comes from The Economist's defense editor. He says that Trump is going to be an absolute bonanza for foreign electronic eavesdropping. Listen to this from the Washington Post. In calls with foreign heads of state, Trump has cut out the State Department and the State Department's secure lines and its official interpreters. He's not even using secure federal email servers. Trump is using unsecure lines to have communications with foreign government officials, with foreign leaders. Unsecure phones, meaning phones that anybody can tap into. So the Russians, the Chinese, everybody are listening to every conversation Trump is having because he's refusing to use secure method of communication, okay? He's doing the same thing with email, it says. The Economist defense editor says this will be an absolute bonanza for foreign spies. Listen to this, quote, this is from the Washington Post. Trump's transition team is considering moving on his first day in office to give his appointees blanket security clearances, according to people familiar. Trump, because he knows it's going to take a long time to get security clearances because that's how it works. If you've got people at the senior levels of government and you're giving them super duper security clearances, it can take up to 9 months. I mean, you try to go faster with somebody who's high level, but you need to make sure they're not a spy. You need to make sure they're not compromisable, that they're basically in debt or are embarrassed of something in their life that can be used to blackmail them because they are getting our nation's top secrets. Trump's plan is the first day in office, he's going to magically give them a security clearance anyway, because as president, he can do that. He did it last time too. There were like 25 officials who couldn't get security clearances because the agency said, we don't trust these people, and Trump gave them clearances anyway. He also reinstated Jared Kushner, as Tinker's just said. He was one of them. Correct. So he's planning on doing it again. Listen to this. In the meantime, the investigations are going on for the security clearances. Guess who's conducting them of Trump's people that he's appointing? And he's got a lot of crazy people he's appointing. Not the FBI. Trump has hired some guy named Stanley from Florida to do the background checks on his most senior officials to see if they're spies or not. Not the FBI. The FBI is who normally does this. According to the Washington Post, Stanley is going to be doing it instead. I wish I were kidding. Listen to this. Thus far, Trump has left the job of vetting candidates to Stanley Woodward, a Palm Beach lawyer on his campaign who has represented several January 6th rioters and Trump associates caught up in classified document case. So he's using a guy who has represented the January 6th insurrectionists named Stanley. I love that his name is Stanley. Stanley to vet his candidates instead of the FBI. You know what? I don't want to say you people because most of you people didn't vote for him, but people voted for this man. They knew he was dangerous. They knew he stole classified information. Trump did. They knew Trump refused to return the classified information illegally. They knew Trump leaked the classified information to the Russians in the Oval Office. Israel was livid. Trump leaked classified information from Israel to the Russians that endangered an Israeli intelligence source. Trump gave away classified information about United States nuclear secrets, nuclear submarines, to an Australian businessman that Trump was trying to brag to. So he told him a bunch of classified nuclear secrets at Mar-a-Lago. Google the story. Okay? This is who Trump is. This is who he is. People voted for him anyway because they don't care. So, oh well, you wanted it. You wanted it. Oh well. And again, Google every one of these stories. Google every one of these stories that I'm telling you. This is not rocket science. That's what's so upsetting. That's what's so upsetting about it, is that all of these stories were already reported. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. Google the story about Trump and the Australian businessman at Mar-a-Lago. Everybody knows the story, guys. Google it. It's out there. The other Australian diplomats the Australian government officials heard about it and got so upset that they went public. I mean, this is crazy stuff. It's absolutely crazy stuff. Anyway, so before we start talking about the rest of the, not that we're done with the news, we're going to do our usual hangout. Remember, guys, we have incredibly amazing auction items back. I got a ton of new stuff from Ukraine. We do auctions to benefit Ukraine. Half the money goes back to Ukraine. Half the money goes to support my work. I do this for free. I do it full time. Your gifts during the show help pay my bills. So thank you for the gifts on TikTok tonight. Thank you for the gifts on YouTube. But also, we've got a ton of cool items over on our Discord auctions. We've got more cool t-shirts. These are some t-shirts that Vlad again made for the volunteers, making the camouflage. It's actually a camouflage t-shirt, but the logo says the Camouflage 100. Oh, thank you, Dawn. The Camouflage 100. It shows a bunch of spiders webbing webs. It says Harkovu Mir in Ukrainian, which is the charity that makes the nets for us. This are t-shirts given to the volunteers who are making Ukrainian camouflage nets for the military. We've been raising money to help make the nets, and these are t-shirts Vlad made for the volunteers. I've got a couple of them that we're auctioning off. You can pick the size. We've got like a medium, an extra large, and a triple XL. We've also got, oh my God, I forgot. One of the things we're auctioning off, a knockoff Lego from Ukraine. This is one of the funniest things ever. It's a knockoff Lego dedicated to the Ukrainian armed forces. Here's a HIMARS with the Ukrainian flag on it. Here's a Bayraktar drone. These are all Legos, right? They're knockoff Legos. Thank you, James. ZSU on the top, which means Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian. Here's Ukrainian map, the Ukrainian logo. This is devoted to honoring the weapons that are helping the Ukrainians fight the war. It's a Lego knockoff. I'm auctioning it off. Guess who made this? This toy is made in China. The Chinese, and I've got a number of them we're going to be auctioning off. The Chinese are making toys honoring the Ukrainian armed forces weapons that are attacking the Russians. I mean, you cannot, you got to love the Chinese. Thank you, Courtney. I mean, you just have to love the Chinese. That anything to make a buck, you know, absolutely amazing. So anyway, this is one of the other really cool things we're auctioning off. I know you got to love capitalism. Even in communism, you got to love capitalism. But this one's pretty cool. So as I said, this is it's a Bayraktar and a HIMARS, a joint toy Lego, fake Lego. So that's pretty cool. This is pretty neat as well. This is some trench art. This is a container that was previously used to store something bad, military weapon. And the Ukrainians took it and made trench art out of it. So they painted it with Ukrainian colors. It says strength, something, or unity is our strength. So, you know, our unity is our strength. Beautifully painted. And again, this used to house a weapon, and the Ukrainians took it and made it into a beautiful piece of art. So I've got a lot of really cool stuff, guys. I mentioned already, we've got a Russian drone. We've got a Russian drone that we're also auctioning off. I mean, the drone is my favorite part. That thing, I can't even believe Vlad got a Russian drone. Basically, the Ukrainians, some Ukrainian soldiers approached him. And the Ukrainians are literally using nets to take drones out of the sky. They lift, I say fishing nets. Maybe I don't know if they're stronger than fishing nets, but imagine like a fishing net. They raise it in the sky and they're capturing drones. I've got two Russian drones that the Ukrainians captured using their fishing nets. And the soldiers approached Vlad, and he wanted them to try to auction them here so that we could raise a little bit of money for the Ukrainians. So we're auctioning the drone. I hope people bid on it. Are they fishing nets? I wasn't sure, Feisty, whether they had to be stronger than fishing nets. Feisty says they are fishing nets. It's pretty freaking cool. It's pretty freaking cool. Thank you, Succeed. I love this stuff. I love the military stuff. Thank you, Eddie. There's a number of other things, like I said. I won't show you everything now, but the other cool piece, like I said, is this White House Christmas ornament from 2024. So this year's Christmas ornament, and it's dedicated to President Jimmy Carter. And it's a really cool ornament, actually, because Carter was a Navy officer, but it was in the Navy. So it's got the Navy, oh my God, I'm getting tired here, whatever the hell you call it, anchor and behind it. And then upside down, it's got design on the back as well. The years he was in office, the number of his submarine. So very cool. But this is the official White House Christmas ornament this year. So it's very cool. And apparently they have serial numbers. It says it has a serial number, and you can register the serial number online. The serial number of the ornament, which I thought was pretty wild. Anyway, so that is not the only thing. Actually, I'll show you the last little thing. There's lots of other things. This is very cool too. It is Ukrainian folk art, but it's very cool. It's based on a motanka. And Vlad sent this from Ukraine. It's a sort of a 3D folk art. These are these dolls that Ukrainians make to basically ward off evil. And it's something that goes back, a very long time. It's gotten popular again. And it's somehow, they're called motanka, and somehow it invokes the ancestors. And they use it to sort of ward off evil, which is very interesting. Anyway, so auctioning that off too, which is a really cool piece of sort of Ukrainian folklore. So anyway, Vlad is an old friend of mine, Ukrainian, who has been helping us, or we've been helping him, raise money to help the Ukrainian military and Ukrainian charities. We've raised money for poor children that lost their parents at the holidays, things like that. So very cool. Yep. So Vlad was just my newest shipment of cool stuff from Vlad came in for our auctions. So, but yes, you can go find our auctions. They'll be going for the next week. I've got more next week. I'll be doing more, but the auctions are going for the next week. This lot will finish in a week. You can find the auctions on YouTube. Go to the description of today's show, click the Linktree link. It'll take you there. Or actually, maybe Discord link will take you there in the description of my show. On TikTok, it's a little more complicated. Go to my profile on TikTok. There's a URL there that says Linktree. Click it. Here's the trick. If you're on a computer, you can just click it, and it'll open up a list, and the top of the list says Discord. Click it. You're there. If you're on a phone, you have to hold the Discord link down with your finger and kind of press and hold down. And then when the Discord link opens up, you'll see it say accept invite. Click the part that says accept invite, and then you should be fine. So anyway, still don't think we're going to war. We're not going to war. We haven't gone to war in a very long time, and we're not, because we're strong. Russia's weak, and they fear us. So yeah, we're not. So congratulations. Anyway, so yes, go check out our auctions. Like I said, it's a lot of really cool stuff. I'm very proud of it, actually, because I think we've got like ridiculously cool stuff. Oh, good. A number of people. I see we've got bids. Thank you, guys. I'm seeing we've already getting bids. I'm glad to see that. Jabberino, you bid correctly. I'm not sure why it didn't work. Huh. That's weird. I'm going to send a message to Syndicate. Hold on. Why didn't his bid work? All right, I'm sending a message to Syndicate because your bid should have worked. /bid space 25, unless, no, yeah, starting bid 20. That should have worked, Jabberino. I'm not sure why it didn't. Okay. I'm going to write him a note. That should have worked. Should have worked. That was weird. All right, well, that's a little annoying, but in any case, good. We've got a number of bids on various things. Excellent. Glad to see it, guys. We've also got a really cool, I've got kind of a cool Russian. Oh, you're there. Oh, I said again. Yeah, check out the bid on which item was it? I just added you. You'll see. Jabberino bid on something, and it looks like he bid correctly. I don't know what happened. Oh, yeah. So the other thing we've got as well is a Russian backpack from Ukraine. And I mean, it's a huge backpack, but it is a used Russian backpack from Ukraine. It is absolutely used. I asked Vlad, he goes, oh, it's Russian, all right. It's got some rips and tears in it, like some, it's been mended up here a few times at the top. It's got a little bit of a rip. I'm trying to see where the other rip is. Oh, there's a little bit of a rip on the side. I mean, it's been through war, but it's a Russian military backpack from Ukraine. So we're auctioning that off too. So as I said, lots of cool stuff, lots of very cool stuff. But the coolest really is the drone. The coolest is the drone. We're auctioning off a Russian drone from Ukraine, which is very, very, very cool. So any case, it should have worked, Syndicate. Yeah, but that's what it looks like after it pops up. It should have, you know that. You you type /bid space, and then it opens the thing up. That means the thing didn't open up for him, probably. In any case, but I hope people are, oh, good. Laka bid on the drone. Thank you, Laka. I was hoping, I started the drone at a higher price because the drone's a drone, you know. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. He may have done it wrong and edited it. Okay. Hopefully Jabarino can try again. He's relatively new. He was able to bid on some stuff previously, but bidding is not always the easiest until you get used to it, unfortunately. So does the drone work? I don't know. I don't know. That's a very good question. I don't know. I guess you'll just have to find out. Noah is asking, do you think Russia messing with its doctrine could affect America's defense stance with the DEFCON levels? I mean, we never, so DEFCON is defense condition. It's something that is never announced publicly. We have 5 defense conditions. Defense condition 5 is peace. Defense condition 1, or I should say DEFCON. DEFCON 1 is war. Each level brings us to a higher level of preparedness. Like at one level, the bombers have to take off and go in the sky. There's different things like that each level does. You know, the ships have to go to sea, the submarines have to go hide, this kind of stuff. I think sort of it's interesting, I think from a US perspective or a European perspective, we're in a bit of a catch-22. We've got to take the Russians seriously. And if the Russians are threatening nuclear war, we've got to prepare for nuclear war. At the same time, we know they're full of shit because we know they constantly bluff about this. This is all they do is bluff. And we know that logically, there's no reason the Russians would ever dare start a nuclear war because they'd lose, and they know they'd lose. So on one hand, you know the Russians are full of shit, but on the other hand, it's irresponsible not to take a threat seriously because we've got to defend our own people, so we should take all threats seriously. I'm not convinced that our DEFCON level would have to change. Having said that, you know, if I were president and Putin keeps threatening nuclear war, I'd prepare ourselves for nuclear war. It doesn't mean that we freak out, but I would certainly put the military at somewhat of a higher level of alert, maybe. But then again, maybe we don't have to be at a higher level of alert, right? I mean, our nuclear submarines can respond even if our country gets wiped out. Our nuclear submarines can respond because nuclear submarines basically hide and nobody can find them. And they've got hundreds of nuclear weapons on them, more than enough to take out Russia. So that is sort of our greatest defense, and the greatest reason that Russia will never start a nuclear war is because they know that they could surprise us and wipe out all of America. Our nuclear submarines, and by the way, the nuclear submarines of the British and the French, would wipe out Russia in response. So that's why I do not get upset about the Russians making these kind of threats. You know, wouldn't matter, WC. Trump, the problem is Trump, he says Trump hinted that Russian hypersonic missiles could take the US out first. No, they can't. This is, by the way, Trump, right? Trump doesn't know things. Trump is an idiot. Trump lies, but also he doesn't understand things. Hypersonic weapons can't take out submarines, right? The Russians cannot find our submarines. The Russian hypersonic weapons could take America out in 30 seconds if they're near Cuba. Oh my God. And then our nuclear submarines will launch their missiles and wipe Russia off the planet, which would be a very bad thing. Putin knows it. So yeah, they're not going to do it. Again, take them seriously. You know, sure. You know, they're threatening us. We should take them seriously. But the worst thing we could do is be afraid of them. You know, the worst thing we could do is be afraid of them. Because then it just gives them more incentive, right? If the Russians are like, oh, you're terrified of me, right? Then it's scary. Then it makes them even more belligerent because they go, well, it seems to work when we threaten nuclear war, so let's threaten nuclear war even more. And that's the situation we're in because the Russians have threatened nuclear war a lot with regards to Ukraine. And unfortunately, it worked. It scared NATO. It scared Biden. It scared the French and Germans. And that's why the Russians keep doing it, you know? You know. Anyway. Stock market was scared. There was a little bit. The stock market did okay otherwise, though. But again, Stock market should be scared in the sense that it is completely irresponsible for anybody to talk about launching nuclear weapons, and Putin does it all the time. So, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Yeah, no, and Putin knows it. Putin knows if he uses nukes, we use our nukes, and everybody dies. Therefore, think about it this way. And honestly, all I have to do, I always try to find examples, but it's not hard to find examples. Think about it from our perspective, right? If we launch nuclear weapons at Russia for whatever reason, what is Russia going to do? They're going to hit us back. Even if we wipe out all of Russia with our nuclear weapons, guess what? We cannot destroy Russia's nuclear submarines. Their nuclear submarines will survive because you can't find submarines. They hide. We could attack Russia first, wipe out all of Russia, knock out all their cities, and then Russia would respond by taking all of their nuclear weapons on their submarines, and they would fire back and they would destroy us. Therefore, I ask you, would you attack Russia with nuclear weapons if you knew the response was Russia's nuclear submarines would wipe everybody off the face of your country? No. You literally would go, well, I'm not doing that. Why are the Russians any different? The Russians would love you to think that they're different. They'd love you to think that they're different. They're not different. They're logical and they're rational. They're just as rational as we are. Thank you, Real Life. Thank you, Walford. Thank you, Real Life. Yeah, he just has threats. It's all he's got. It's all he's got. Oh, well. Anyway, what else, guys? What else is going on? We've got a while. We can hang out now. Hunt for Red October. That wasn't a documentary. That was a movie. It was a very good movie. My refrigerator is hanging in there, so I'm letting it be. It's still hanging in. So I'm like, okay, what do you do? I did restore the power to my balcony, though, which I'm very excited. My balcony power thing went dead. I just got a friend who, I paid him to fix it today, who's kind of a repairman. So that was pretty cool. So I now have the lights are back. Actually, you can even see one of them on YouTube. That's one of the balcony lights. You guys, I don't think so. No. For you guys, I think the balcony lights are they're a little too hidden. But I'm very excited because now I've got pretty little lights along my plants on the balcony. Very pretty. A new fridge before January 20th. That's true. Didn't think of that. Honestly, the fridge is hanging in there. And as much as I don't want my fridge to die on me, I'm also kind of like, it works. I'd rather just let it be. I've read so many bad reviews of refrigerators, so it's better just to let them keep going. Exactly. Lights for Sasha to eat twigs by. Exactly. Anyway, what else, guys? What else? Oh, thank you, Oren, for the gift. But yeah, if they're made abroad, they're going to go up in price. That's for sure. I'm actually trying to decide whether I get a new phone yet or not. Because my phone's going on 3 years old. Typically with my iPhones, I wait, my laptop now I think is 6 years old. I like to wait until my technology dies, basically, before I get something new. I'm very good that way. And my iPhone is now 3 years old. And I'm debating because the big deals are always around Thanksgiving, which would be like in a week and a half. But I'm kind of like, I'm not convinced yet as to whether the new iPhone is new enough or whether I should wait a year. iPhone 16, not worth it. Pro Max is the sweet spot. But then maybe I should wait a year. Should I just get a new battery in my phone and wait another year? That's the kind of thing I'm wondering, But I feel like if I'm getting the 15, though, I'm getting an older phone. So why not? I've got a 14 already. So should I just wait? You know what I mean? Apple, I don't get it from Apple. Apple doesn't offer the deals. In America, at least, oh my God, the deals are outrageous. My old phone, I got an $800 trade-in on my 3-year-old phone. $800. It was insane. Yeah. So, But yeah, I kind of feel like I hate waiting another year, but I kind of feel like the only thing is my battery's getting weaker. But I guess I could always spend $100 and get a better battery, you know. But I think I got mine from Verizon, actually, my phone company. But you can get them from Walmart and other places too. They've got great. Walmart was giving like $300 gift certificates. I mean, crazy stuff, absolutely crazy stuff. Anyway, will Trump bring back electronic production to the U.S. with tariffs? I mean, I don't know. Can he? I mean, the problem is, as people were saying the other day, it could take a long time to build up that infrastructure to do it. You know, I mean, I had a warranty. My phone's 3 years old. You know, we're not going to war, wheelchair, so you're good. And solve that problem. Nobody's going to war. Russians are afraid of us, so not a problem. The only people more afraid of going to war than any of you are the Russians. The Russians are terrified of going to war with us because our military is stronger than theirs. Our military is better than theirs. Our military would kick their ass, and they know it. Especially not just the U.S., but collectively NATO would kick Russia's ass to kingdom come. Russia knows it. That is why, again, I get very frustrated when I see the Russians make threats. It's literally the weak guy making threats against you, and you're looking at him going, I know you're weak. You know you're weak. You know I could beat you up. Why are you making threats to me? Because I know you're faking. I know you're bluffing. So, anyway. Even if China and North Korea died? Yeah, because Chinese and North Koreans are not immune to what the effects of nuclear weapons either. So, yeah. What? Oh, yeah, you're just begging. I thought she was begging for what? She's not begging for water. Of course, she's begging for treats. Hey, no, stop. We're not doing this. No, my dog has been getting into whiny mode lately where she sits there all night and like whines because she wants a treat. And I'm like, going to kill her. Absolutely going to kill her. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Anyway. Well, and the Republicans want to repeal the CHIPS Act, which was the manufacturing act to bring the technology here to America, to bring the manufacturing, and now they want to repeal it. Surprise, surprise. Thank you, Diana, for the gift. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Anyway, what else, guys? Anything else here? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, yawning at you all. Oops. So I'm just looking here. Excellent. Good. All right. Good. Is Blue Sky better? It's okay. I use it. It's okay. You know, we're not sure yet, Ron. I mean, Ron was asking, what did Ukraine hit with the ATACMS? We gave them permission to fire into Russia. We think they hit a Russian arsenal. So like whether it was a Russian storage facility for weapons or something, but that's sort of the latest we have here. That's a good question, Wheelchair. If nukes didn't exist, do you think we would be at war? The problem is, well, again, it becomes a problem. If nukes didn't exist, then Russia would be in real trouble because all of the rest of our military is way better than Russia's and way stronger than Russia's. We would beat them. Again, lots of people would die. War is bad, right? Nobody's saying it wouldn't be bad, but we would win, and the Russians know it. So if anything, Russia would be weaker without nuclear weapons than with nuclear weapons. We would be more willing to help the Ukrainians a lot more if the Russians didn't have nuclear weapons. So the war could have been over. Good night, WC. The war could have been over early on because we wouldn't have been afraid to give the Ukrainians enough the weapons that they needed. No word on the Crimean Bridge. No. So. Well, the main ones are PC. No, I can't imagine all Republicans are calling for repeal. All of them are not. The Speaker of the House, Republican, called for repeal of the CHIPS Act. And then, but the best part was he was on stage with a local Republican official, I think in New York, I'm forgetting where. And the local congressman stood up and goes, I disagree. I don't think we should repeal it, because it's helped a lot of people in his business, in his district, which was interesting. So yeah. Oh, hey, Chris. Oh, Christopher's here today. Hi, Christopher. Sorry, Syndicate's baby Christopher is here today. Hi, Christopher. Hello. Let's see. I don't want to scare Christopher with my Greek donkey. Oh, wait, where's the... Ah! All right. Can Ukrainians make a nuclear bomb in 30 days? No. Nobody thinks they can. Nobody thinks they can. No, that was a crazy article from the Times of London a couple days ago claiming the Ukrainians could make nukes in 3 weeks or something crazy. And all sort of the experts came out and said, what? That's insane. So yeah. It's considered, it wasn't really clear why they wrote that article, why they wrote the article. So when will the next Ukrainian election be held? I don't know. When are the Russians going to stop trying to kill them? Under the Ukrainian constitution, they can't hold elections when they're under martial law. So if you're worried about Ukrainian elections, then you should be talking to the Russians about stop trying to commit genocide in Ukraine. It's the best way to have an election. But when a country is occupying 20% of your country and stealing your children to the point where the International Criminal Court has put an arrest warrant out for Vladimir Putin for war crimes, for kidnapping Ukrainian kids, it's kind of hard to hold elections. So, but yeah, Ukrainians want to hold them. If you can tell your friends, the Russians, to stop trying to commit genocide in Ukraine, they can have their elections. Oh, now you want water? No, now you're just begging again. I hear you. Oh, hi. Okay, that's a little better. All right, fine. Go eat your sticks. Go eat your sticks. Go eat your sticks. You wonder if the U.S. would have won World War II without nukes. Well, I mean, we beat the Germans, the Japanese, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's been ample analysis on that. What do the experts say? I've not read this, but I'm sure there's been ample analysis of what would have happened in World War II if we didn't drop. I think actually, for example, I remember some of this. Didn't they say like we would have won, but there would have been like 1 million more casualties or something crazy like that? Whether it was 1 million more American casualties or I don't know what. I forget exactly. But I think that's it, that we would have won, but it would have been horrific. So, yeah. 1 million soldiers. That's the number I remember. Yeah. Or 500,000 people are saying, and 1 million Japanese. I mean, yeah. Well, and again, Japanese too, which is an important fact that we sort of don't think about, you know? What else? All our little trolls are gone. It's funny how they come in waves. They come at the beginning of the show and kind of go crazy. And then I think the auction got them. Hello. Hi. What you doing? What are you doing? She's always so guilty because she likes to go out and eat sticks. And I open the door and she literally sits there and looks at me like, like, what? We didn't have the bomb ready to drop on Berlin. Barr said, why didn't we drop a bomb on Berlin? We didn't have one. Right? That was a year before. Right? The Germans were 1944. When did Germany actually surrender? Was it summer or what was I'm trying to remember. What was I guess victory in Europe, VE Day. What day was VE Day? For or whatever for was it May? Oh, it was May of 45. Okay, interesting. Okay. But December of 45, right? December 7th was Hiroshima, though, right? Of 45, though. I'm pretty sure. I'm not getting this. I'm not mixing this up, am I? Right. Oh, August. Not December. That's Pearl Harbor. I'm sorry, August. Oh, I knew it was August. Yeah. It's funny. I just watched Oppenheimer the other day. It was August. But we still wouldn't have had the weapon in time if it was May, and they already surrendered by May. I mean, the weapons weren't really ready until they were ready. And I believe we only had the 2 as well, right? Now the dog wants water. Yeah, I watched Oppenheimer. I know this. December 7th was Pearl Harbor Day. Having a brain fart here. 1 second. All right, dog, you want a little water? Get a little water. All right. All right. There you go. All right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Interesting question as to, I don't know. I'm sure people know at this point whether there was discussion about dropping the bomb on Germany if the Germans had hung out. You know what I mean? We weren't going to nuke Europe. Well, there's a question too. Right. If I fill her bowl with water, she will drink a cup of water. She's this big and she will pee all night in my bed. That is why it is a very logical suggestion, Janine. And there's a very logical reason why I do not. So, but good idea. No, you're not right. Or you're not wrong. I mean, but yes, she drinks a ton. She always has ever since she was a puppy, and she just can't stop. She would drink half a cup of water. She's only 10 pounds. She would drink half a cup of water right now like that. I finally bought a blanket for my bed that's like a dog pee blanket, and it's really nice and comfortable, but water cannot go through it. It's a godsend, this thing. And so she thinks it's her little comfortable blanket on the bed, and I'm like, ha ha ha. Man in the High Tower, one of the best TV shows ever, Jocelyn. Yes. Amazing TV show. Amazing TV show. What else, guys? Anything else, guys, or should we call it quits? Man in the High Castle. Thank you. High Tower. That's funny. Yep. Man in the High Castle. I think I do that too. I often call it Man in the High Tower as well. Sorry, Jocelyn called it that, but I call it that too sometimes. I mean, who knows, Steve? I mean, she said, do you think that if South Korea gives arms to Ukraine, North Korea would start on South Korea? I mean, who knows? I mean, I just don't know. The North Korean, no, I think the Russians are very rational. The North Koreans are not rational at all. So God knows what the North Koreans would do, right? Thanks, real life. Appreciate that. Oppenheimer was okay. I remember it being too long. Like, it needed to be edited a lot. No, you're done. No more. No. See, she got her water, and now she's begging for me to do her teeth and her treats again. I mean, she's not wrong. This is around the time we do it, but she's got in her head that if she just whines for half an hour, I do it. So then she thinks the whining made me do it. And I'm like, oh God, no. The whining did not make me do it. It just so happens that this is when we brush your teeth. So more North Korean troops headed to Russia. The recent story was that they think as many as 100,000 North Korean troops will head to Russia, but they will go in stages. So it's not like 100,000 North Koreans will attack the Ukrainians. There's 10,000 there now. They get killed and injured. They leave. Another 10,000 come. And then basically up to 100,000 may show up to keep fighting. So that's what it is. Sasha has me very well trained. I don't respond to the whining, but then I've got to do her teeth eventually. And then she thinks, aha, I whined for half an hour and then he did my teeth and gave me a treat. And it's like, I can't break it is hard to break the little obnoxious dog thing. And they do pee a lot, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a small dog problem, unfortunately. Any other countries considering helping Ukraine with troops? The French, that's about it. That talked about it. The Germans, I think, talked about it again. Sasha is a Yorkie Bichon. True. You mean just don't tell her to stop whining? Just kind of ignore the whining entirely, Auntie Onion? I do wonder about that. Yeah. I do her teeth every night. Not long, because she doesn't let me go too long. But I do her teeth every night. Yeah. Yep. Just because I think supposedly the toothpaste itself has some enzymes or something. I can try to ignore the whines and see if I can handle it. I will try. Actually, that's a good point. Like a toddler. That's true. You're right. That is true. With the toddlers, I remember like my nephew screaming upstairs, and my mom was like, Just let him scream. And I remember my other little nephew being like, Yaya, which means grandma, I can't. I feel so bad. And she's like, don't go up there. Yeah, she's a Yorkie mix and she is the boss. Yes. Small dogs with strong bladders. That's good, at least. Yeah, that is not a usual, not always a usual thing. Sasha does not get birthday cake on her birthday. I do not. It's not a day I celebrate just cause. But her birthday is around January 20th or so. It is like inauguration day, I think. So. Yeah, pretty sure. The alarm with the toothbrushing. True, but will that? Now she's trying to get me to play. I'm trying to see where she is. She's back there somewhere. Oh, she started for a second there. That was it. Your sister's 19-year-old Maltese pees like a little goat. I'm not sure how do goats pee. Yep, I'm still not seeing her there. Okay. All right. Good night, RT. Anyway. All right, guys. I think we're going to call it quits. Things are slowing down here. It's 22 after anyway, so thank you for joining us. It is Tuesday, November 19th, so I'll be back tomorrow. We will be at our usual show is 6 o'clock Eastern time US, so come back then. That's 6 o'clock New York City time. I'm in Washington, D.C., same time zone. Otherwise, I am trying to pop in the morning. There is another shipment from Vlad that did not come in today yet. It was supposed to come in. I did not see. I don't think anything came. Nope, nothing yet, but a third box was coming in from Vlad today. So we've got more cool auction items, which is good. Dental powder you can put in their food, brushes their teeth while they eat. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. I did not hear about that one. If it's any good, I would consider it. I did not hear about that one. I use the water additive that apparently helps. Her teeth are really good. I mean, considering she's 15 practically, her teeth, and she's been to the dentist only once. Her teeth, she's been very lucky with her teeth, but I also do brush them and stuff. Not a lot, but enough. But I think the water additive helps too, so that like the plaque doesn't form. Anyway, it's very good. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you for the gifts on TikTok and YouTube both. Thank you for managing the trolls tonight. We did well. We had a big onslaught, but it turned out pretty well. Anyway, but I will see if I can find that powder. I'd be very curious what the additive is, if it works. If it works, I would certainly consider it because why not? Can't hurt. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you, everybody. All right, YouTube, kicking you off first. Boom. Whoop, there we go, YouTube. And then TikTok.